some are kinesthetic. You guys know that stuff, I think, because you've either been in education and heard that stuff or you've been teaching it. So I thought, no, let's just talk just some simple stuff here. So you can go and you can get textbooks, you can get journals, you can read novels, and you can learn from all of those. But you know what? That can sound kind of boring. But just picture this for a minute. Reading a text, lying on the beach with the sun shining down on you. Or early morning on your deck with the birds singing. Doesn't that sound great? Media, we can learn on the internet. There's so much available to us between YouTube and articles and Nurse One and Helen Randall Library. I tried to find something the other day and I emailed Helen Randall Library, which you guys have access to, and the next day I got a fax with what I was looking for. DVDs, videos, webinars, podcasts. We've been developing a podcast library so that people teaching palliative care in particular can have their students listen to materials via podcast. So if they don't have enough time in class, or if the instructor doesn't have the knowledge, then they can get this stuff through a podcast. How cool is that? Webinars, journal clubs, meetings, facilities, whether that's classroom learning or workshops or university or college or online education. There's so much available to us. We just need to take it. But let's not make it boring. Find places, find learning that's exciting. I went to university a few years ago specifically because I wanted to improve my research knowledge. And I also wanted to get this course from this woman who I had heard about. One day I got a phone call from her and she said, Kath, I'm only teaching this course in the summer and then I'm retiring, but I have one other course in the fall. And I said, how can I get in? She says, I'll put you in right now if you want to be there. And I said, I'm there. It was the most amazing opportunity. And it was wonderful to take it from someone who was so good at teaching. Let's have all of our teachers, everybody here who is being paid to teach. We'll talk about teaching in general after. But could all of our teachers stand up? All of our instructors, administrators from the colleges, could you stand up? Or if you're a teacher in your job as an instructor at a facility. Yeah. Come on, you guys, let's do one for them. Yoo-hoo! Yes, thank you. All right, what a marvelous thing to have great instructors. Okay, but instructors and classroom learning is not the only way we learn. And I did a piece for inside the manual, Essentials in Hospice Palliative Care. There's a section in there called Everything I Need to Know About Being with the Dying I Learned from My Dog. You know, can you just think of those incredible dogs? And to tell you the truth, I've never owned one of those incredible dogs. But you know those types that other people have that are just such good companions, they're so well behaved, you know those kind? And you think about what they could teach us about being with the dying. So when you go back today and you go home and somebody says, well, you know, who taught you today? And you can say, oh, some dog. And look at those amazing animals and think about how they teach you about presencing and about being with someone. Now, you can probably imitate them on most everything, but don't try licking. It's not acceptable. My daughter reminded me when I was preparing this about the first piece of the manual, Essentials in Hospice Palliative Care, starts with a line that I like best, and it says, I came to hospice nursing as a child. And someone said, you know, that's such a profound line. And I went, profound? And she said, yes, we should all come to hospice nursing. In fact, we should all come to nursing as children, not filled out with knowing, but come with that curiosity and desire to learn. Oh, there's a good idea. But then I go on to tell the story about my introduction to death as a child. My first one that I remembered was taking a dead leaf, one of those beautiful maple leaves that's covered, that's just veins. It doesn't have any of the flesh on it anymore. And I took this veiny leaf and I put it in a saucer with water and I tried to nurse it back to health. It doesn't work. So I don't know if it was months or a year or two later, there was a rat in our basement that was obviously sick, and my mother picked it up and threw it out on the snow and then got us off to school. We went to school, and where did we go when we got home? To see the rat, which we picked up, we put in the same little dog house, and I tried to nurse it back to life. No success. The next time I found a dead robin, I realized I was not doing well in the resurrection department, and so we had a funeral for the rabbit, a very serious, or not rabbit, the robin. We had a very serious funeral and a little, service and a procession and everything. We learn much from nature. Reflective writing. In the journal that some of these guys have just been awarded, there's a quote by a woman named Laurel Richardson. She says, "I write to find something out. I write to learn." And she says, sometimes we think we write when we know what we want to say, and we were taught to write once we have our ideas perfect. But she says, "I write to find something out." So with that in mind, and after the incredible opportunity to take this research course, where the first course I took was writing as research, I put together a reflective writing journal with the idea of including some writing stems and just encouraging free writing and seeing what comes forward. Some students used it in the psych nursing program in Brandon, Manitoba as part of their palliative care or psych nursing piece. I can't remember how it was. And the learning and the readings and the writings that came forth from that were phenomenal. So taking the time to journal can be an incredible learning activity. We can learn at work. We can learn from our successes. We can learn from our challenges. When we make a mistake, that can be some of our best learning. But when we do something good, we can learn from that too. And our colleagues. And I think of the number of times I've walked with colleagues. I love walking and I love talking. So put them together, the walkie-talkies. What better place to learn than walking around Elk Lake and debriefing stuff that's happening at work, or sharing theories or thoughts and ideas? At its best, education inspires excellence in practice. I've heard friends say over the years, people don't learn anything from workshops. They don't remember them, and people only retain, 10% of what they hear or whatever. I don't buy that. I'm sure in terms of some of the details that, I'm sure research shows that, then I guess I should buy it. But the process of engaging, the process of being here. There's a lovely nurse here from Quesnel. Where are you? You're over here somewhere. Would you stand up? She's here from Quesnel. She drove from half an hour outside of Quesnel. I'm sorry, Heather, for embarrassing you. This is Heather Knopf from outside of Quesnel. She drove 8 hours down. She spent this morning in here. Then she was in at the exhibits at lunchtime, and she says, "It has just been so great. I've gained so much." And she only had to drive 8 hours to get here. What I believe about education, number one, education must be fun. And I say that this using the word fun to mean engaging, interesting, and exciting. Education, life's too short to have boring stuff. Let's have fun. Let's hear it for good education. And secondly, my second theory about education is that teaching is an invitation to learn, and learning is an invitation to teach. So when I start a workshop, I always say, okay, so let's have fun learning and teaching together. So now we have talked about being on the recipient end of education. Now I'm sorry to say this, folks, but now we're going to get into the really exciting stuff. I'd like to talk about you in your role as an LPN, as a teacher, and as an educator. Did you know that when you went into nursing, you were going to be an educator? Who said that? All right, is that Barb? Hi, Teresa. Go see my husband after, too. How did you know that? Oh, yay, Stephanie. Whoa, ho, ho, ho. And did you see she's still running in high heels?
Yes.
I'll trip off this. Okay, go for it, Teresa.
That was one of the reasons I wanted to be an LPN, is because I knew that there would be so many opportunities to pass on my knowledge to the patients, to learn from them, to be a preceptor. In fact, Karen and I have not seen each other since 2007, when she was my preceptee at home care nursing in Prince George.
Wow. Nice. Great. Thank you. So let's talk about your role as teachers and educators. Now, Teresa was wise. Teresa, I was 19 years old and I had a profound experience. And I won't go into this, and I have never shared this in this kind of a setting before, but I'm going to share a piece of it with you. I was doing construction in Whitehorse, and I took a day off, and I was just going to have this day to evaluate some things in my life. One of the pieces that came to me was that I had a mission in life. One of those pieces was that I would teach. Do you know, and there was threefold mission, but one was that I would teach. It was interesting. I was 19 years old. I didn't go home and change my major from nursing to education. I just carried on. And it was years later I thought, oh my goodness, this is all about teaching. Thank you, Teresa. Okay, so let's set the stage. Now, I need to make true confessions here. I'm a hospice palliative care nurse, so I can't leave this presentation without talking a little bit about dying. And nor can I let you get out of here without hearing a little bit about death and dying, hospice palliative care in Canada right now. Who's excited about that? And anybody who needs to have a sleep, just stand up so that you'll stay awake, because this is so important. Life is terminal and is sexually transmitted. Now, when I heard that a number of years ago, I don't know who originally thought of that. Maybe it was God, actually. But anyway, I think this is a very profound statement. I've heard it said that death education left to the deathbed is as inappropriate as sex education left to the sex bed, to the marital bed. Anyhow, but with one of the topics that we tend to hold off on. And in fact, I have had people say, oh, we don't teach it at the end of the curriculum. We teach it a little bit, before that, because we don't want everybody to end on a bad note. And I'm thinking, like, there's nothing more exciting than talking about this, because life and death both matter. And when we forget one, we sometimes forget the other. Okay. I had another epiphany. So one was when I was 19. One of my other epiphanies came a few years ago. I had gone back to do my master's, and I did it in thanatology for a couple reasons. But I did it back in the eastern states. A kid said to me, what's thanatology, Kath? I said, it's study of death, dying, and bereavement. This kid says, Kath, it sounds really good if you don't tell anyone what it is. And another young friend of mine who's both her parents I had nursed till she died, she says, Kath, it sounds like a master's in hell if you ask me. And I said to her, I'm sure it does, Jen, I'm sure it does. So when I was after my master's in thanatology and looking at death through the ages, it's fascinating when you're a thanatologist. You see, you get to discuss things with everybody from funeral directors to spiritual care advisors. And of course, I don't like nurses being snobs, but I discovered that I was such a snob because I couldn't figure out how they could graduate people from this course without some good practical information on understanding how to be with people when they were dying. Anyway, another topic. So, a few years after that, I'm looking at the statistics and I'm looking at stuff and I'm going,